We are go live.
Kia ora. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Nau mai haere mai. I'm Bridget Coates, a trustee and advisory board member for Mindful Money. Mindful Money is a charity that enables the public to use their money as a force for good. So this evening, we're going to talk about taking a gender lens to ethical investing. And I'm so delighted we have two excellent panelists to help us discuss this matter. So we're going to kick off with a discussion for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll open up to your questions. So you will be on mute during the discussion, but you can ask questions at any time on Zoom or in the Facebook Live comment section. So before we get started, a few words from me on our speakers. So first we have Martin Lewington. Martin is CEO of Mercer, New Zealand, and Country Corporate Officer of Martin McLennan Companies. Martin has 30 years experience in corporate advisory consulting and has worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers and for EY. His background covers a range of projects in New Zealand and in the UK, including Treaty of Waitangi settlements, corporate finance projects, investment consulting, privatisations, and financial planning. Welcome, Martin.
Kia ora.
Angela Meyer. For the last 25 years, Angela has worked across the world in a number of senior marketing and communications roles. She has a long and proven track record for being an industry and community champion for equal pay and gender equality. Couldn't be better for our evening's discussion. As a business owner, community leader, and social justice innovator, she has been forging cutting-edge practices in gender intelligence, body positivity, and business development for over 20 years. A warm welcome to you both.
Thank you. Kia ora.
So what I'd like to do is start with first talking about the profile of a female investor. I'd like to have you each talk, perhaps Angela first, on what research has been undertaken to look at the profile of women investors. What are some of the restrictions or challenges, and what is required to bring gender equity in financial services? Thanks very much, Angela.
Great question to start off with, big question to start off with. So I'll try and keep it brief. So we know that studies show that gender diversity on boards, for example, is a great predictor of long-term value creation and lower stock price volatility. We also know that when we're talking about the profile of a female investor, we really need to think about the fact that women, we have the gender pay gap, we have the motherhood gap, and as one respondent in one of our surveys said, all the advice seems to assume that there's spare income at the end of the pay week. Now, that being said, we also know that women as investors on average tend to stay the course. They're less likely to be caught up in this idea of riding the market, and their investments are more lucrative and pay higher dividends. And when we kind of explored that a lot more, we've done a big piece of research both in 2017 on the economic and emotional lives of New Zealand and Australian women, and recently just finished another big piece of research out to New Zealand and non-binary, New Zealand women and non-binary, which was a sample size of 3,500. Very much asking about money and finances and a whole bunch of other things. And what we found there was that many women think that money is some kind of white man's magic. It's something that is very difficult for a lot of women to understand, in the sense that we have 22% rate their knowledge about investing as about excellence or above average. So we're looking at, most women don't really feel that they understand investing. We also know that a lot of women are saying that we want jargon-free language in the information that banks are giving us. They want education about budgeting and how money works. Easy to understand information about retirement savings. We know that women are retiring with significantly less in their retirement savings. And we also know that a lot of women, 72%, said that they want education in schools about money and finance. And this is really interesting to me because we also know that women are responsible for at least 80% of all purchasing decisions. So on the one hand, we have huge economic power, and on the other hand, we are very much disadvantaged in terms of access to financial knowledge and information. And when we are investing, and it is admittedly a pretty limited pool of female investors, we are very good at it. So what does that mean? Well, it's fascinating to me. We also understand that there's huge opportunities for financial organizations to really engage and cater to this market. I've spent a lot of time talking with a lot of financial institutions and kind of presented a lot of this information and said, if there was ever an audience to be targeting, why aren't you talking to women? And making it really interesting, really accessible, and acknowledging the lived experience for many women, which is, as I mentioned, we are retiring into poverty, we have this lack of financial knowledge, and also our financial well-being is really sidelining our concerns, aspirations, opportunities, and potentials. And the third part of that question, like what is required to bring gender equity into financial services? Well, a lot of it is really, I mean, from any kind of perspective, is understanding your audience and understanding what is important to your audience if you're a financial organization or a financial service. And so women are saying, please understand who we are, what our experience is, and tailor the information to us. And as I said, there is this idea that there is money left over at the end of payday. And for a lot of women, that is not the case. Stop here. So go on, Fever.
Thank you very much. What a fantastic background you've had in this terribly important topic. So really grateful for that's a brilliant scene setter. Martin, could I turn to you and ask you to talk about your experience with the average female investor and how you think about it?
Yeah, kia ora. Firstly, look, hey, thank you for having me on the panel today. It really is a privilege. I do appreciate that I'm a man and talking about gender equity, but look, it is something that I do believe, just in my own small way, I can make a difference, and certainly as an industry, we've got a significant role to play in making a difference. One of the things, and Angela's tapped into it as well, look, I see so much value, not only just in objective stuff like increased returns, but, better outcomes, when diversity, so people of colour, and also women are included in the discussion around the table, etc. We've also just completed a survey, a KiwiSaver sentiment survey, and some of the most interesting findings were actually when we looked at the outcomes for women and men. And one, and it sort of sticks in my mind, it's been consistent each year we've done it, is that, look, we ask basic questions about your components of KiwiSaver, really to test your financial literacy, how much you know about finance. And actually, men are significantly more confident in their perceived knowledge of KiwiSaver. However, in reality, they don't know any more than women. The other thing that we discovered too is that women value ethical investing. So on average, they're 10% more likely than men to switch providers if their funds don't actually deliver and align with their own values. And taking a step outside KiwiSaver and professional women investors, we know that currently, so far this year, US equities, all women or predominantly women investment teams have outperformed male portfolio teams. And we also know that hedge funds run by women have consistently outperformed over 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. You pick a year, they've outperformed. So the issue there too, the thing that sticks out is, women, we've got to somehow give them the confidence to make those investments. And I'm taking, the retail investor, because damn it, at an institutional, professional level, women totally slay the market.
I like it. We slay.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
Well, it is, yeah.
Totally. Look, I'm so pleased to see you did mention the professional market and how there's evidence of outperformance by women teams and women, especially in the hedge fund area. And just a personal story: when I came back from the US, I realized that women were not engaging in angel investment at all. And and one of the reasons for that was the angel clubs tend to be very, male dominated, obviously, and rather, socialize in a rather boysy sort of way. And so we set up a club called Archangels, which, and this is 5 years ago now, has invested in 20 women entrepreneurs, and is so far one excellent exit, and doing really well. So gradually taking over all of the various parts of the capital market. So
it's really exciting. I think, one thing, and this is a wee bit cynical, but we've got to be careful what we wish for, because I think you hit on something there, that one of the reasons why women may outperform is not only because they're as financially literate as men, but they don't get caught up in that group thing, that boys club. They are truly innovative, they truly are independent, and they truly are thinking of original ideas and that sort of thing. And, you could end up with the, the wisdom of crowds almost, if they end up in a huge predominance. But look, that's something aspirational. I think we've got a long way to go before women dominate the investment industry, but certainly at the moment they're outperforming, which is great to see.
And just to pick up on that, Martin, one of the things that we have noticed in some events we run called Money, 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 which are women and non-binary only, we've noticed that women, when they're in that environment, are very happy to ask the questions. And we see, the questions that are being asked are really high-level questions on the whole, but within a kind of I suppose mixed gender sphere, there is a sense that men tend to kind of put their hand up and ask a question that is not actually really a question. It's kind of like a long, detailed something that no one really understands. And actually quite often even the panelists are like, I'm not really sure what you've just said. So it's kind of interesting when there's a space where those questions can be asked. And also we're seeing in our research around those female investors, we're not afraid to say we don't understand what you're talking about. Actually let's break down, for example, what is compounding interest, or let's break down what the hedge fund returns are, and asking those questions and not having this assumption that we know.
Isn't that a great,
Exactly.
Sorry, go.
I think there's something about attitudes to risk too. Women investors tend to have a more nuanced attitude to risk, take on less risk, but more intelligent risk. So
that's right.
I would think
they know how to shop. It's kind of like you're looking for the bargains, you're not going to buy full price. That's what I say to people who are like, I don't understand shares. I'm like, do you know how to shop? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, it's the same thing.
Exactly. That's a brilliant analogy. Thank you for that.
It is. Can we use that one? Because again, the language of finance, I don't know, that we seem to overcomplicate things. And one of the things that we did find in our research is it's about communication. Women highly value that. So if we can just have those wonderful little sound bites that put a complex or an unnecessarily complex idea in such simple language, we will, we'll all be winners in this. People saving for their retirement are going to have much better outcomes than those people that try and, time the market, which, as you pointed out, women do not try and time the market. So.
Can I ask you both for examples of products that have been that have reached out into this market successfully? Can you talk about examples that you've seen? Angela, I think you may have something in a retirement fund in Australia, maybe.
A little bit of something up my sleeve. Yes, so we worked with a retirement fund in Australia who there was a big report that came out recently, or maybe 2 or 3 years ago in Australia, that said that women were retiring into poverty. So men were getting on average about $500,000 and women were retiring with about $124,000. And so this retirement fund were like, this is appalling, this is terrible. They had a look at who was in their fund, and it was 80% women. And what they decided to do was actually go, well, we need to create something that really speaks to our fund, to our customers, you know, to our members, and got us involved. And what we did was help create something called Super, which is almost like a Flybuys. So instead of every time you go shopping, instead of getting kind of like the Flybuys points that sort of accumulate and possibly no one uses, that money goes directly into your retirement savings. So it's kind of, in lots of ways, the rats and mice, but actually over time that compounds. And you know, women could, and you know, obviously with every single caveat around financial advice, etc., be retiring with up to, you know, at least another $40,000 in their retirement savings. And what was kind of really interesting about this product was that often, because women take time out of the workforce for caring responsibilities, either for children or parents, etc., if they are not able to put money into their or into their retirement savings, it was very difficult for women to actually be able to contribute, other than from the scarcity mindset of like, don't have that coffee. And I don't know anyone who goes, I'm not going to have the coffee, I'm going to put the $5 into my retirement savings. Whereas this was actually an opportunity to go, we're not asking you to do anything different. Every time you go and do your weekly shop, or you get your petrol or whatever savings you have there can go directly into your superannuation. Groundbreaking, super interesting. And also, to pick up on your point, Martin, you know, the point that, you know, my job there was actually to communicate it in a way that was really accessible and really fun, and take a real kind of humorous approach. And I mean, who wants to talk about superannuation? Basically nobody, ever. But it's kind of like, we did a whole bunch of quizzes that said, you know, are you a superstar or a super juggler? And it's, you know, and it was actually a really engaging, really exciting project to be involved in, and won a whole bunch of awards. And we've seen a number of copycat things happening in Australia. So I think there are ways to think about this, and ways to think about products when you understand the needs of women, especially, and you can actually go, okay, well, how can we ensure that they are actually going to be financially better off, and that their financial wellness is paramount.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Really interesting. Martin, have you got anything further to add to the topic of product?
I couldn't agree more with what Angela's been saying. You know, it's just really understanding the market. So if you treat women as a particular market category, and again, going back to our KiwiSaver research, you know, the top 5 features that women are looking for is absolutely number 1, clear communication. They do want to see good investment performance, easy access, which I think also links back in with clear communication, competitive fees, and then ethical investing. So look, there's the signposts or the markers. And so if you're building product wrapped around those 5 key issues, you potentially could have a very successful business model there. I think too, at the institutional end, we're getting a lot more questions. So our institutional investors are asking us about the fund managers that they're using, and increasingly gender equality is coming up, certainly ethical, and the ESG, and now gender equality is coming up as well. And so our researchers are asking questions around, you know, what sort of diversity policies do you have? You know, flexible working hours, return to work, and, you know, all of those unconscious bias training, all that kind of stuff are now part of our checklist for our investment researchers. Who would have thought, you know, 10 years ago that those sort of things, those sort of questions would be asked? So it's not only looking at the investment managers, the way they do business, but it's then going the next layer down to the companies that they invest in. So remarkable change. You know, some of the biggest fund managers globally, Legal in General, you know, they've gone very hard on the whole board diversity thing, because again, as Angela introduced, you know, we know that businesses with a diversified governance structure, and that generally outperform businesses that keep an eye on ethical which is a wider group of stakeholders, generally outperform. You know, they don't have the train wreck when they do something wrong, or their stakeholders raise their hands and say that's not on. So yeah, it's
a huge opportunity.
Yeah,
you know, I'm just like, here's the information, here's the insight. Jump in there, you know, like if anyone's looking for somewhere to go and invest and create product for, I mean.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges there is that, you know, 90% of the industry are males. And so, you know, that immediately you've got to, oh, jeepers. You know, it's harder to understand that market. It's like, you know, if you're an older person trying to understand the younger people. So if you've got 90% of the population of males, it's always going to be that bit harder for them to understand, communicate, tap in to that part, you know, particular market.
Some ladies.
That's it, you know. Well, I think Mercer, I'm very privileged that we do have an extraordinary group of women, you know, from our global CEO right through to our head of investment research, my local chief investment officer based in Pacific woman, the global head of ethical investment. So Mercer is getting there, but we're not perfect. And, you know, the rest of the industries, some of them have got a long way to go.
So please do feel free to enter into the chat any questions or on Facebook. So question from Mark, do you think that women prefer to deal with female financial advisors rather than male? Have you had anything maybe in your research, Angela, or picked up, Martin, in that respect?
We across our research, we found that women want 5 things really from any brand or organisation, and that is respect, demonstrating value for money, time, if you can make more time. I'm not quite sure how you do that, but if you can also appreciate that mums on average have 10 minutes of me time a day. So it's like, give us the information, give it to us straight, let's not waffle about. We really, really want to feel loved and that we are important to you as customers. And most importantly is this idea of connection. So I don't actually think it matters so much whether it is it's a male financial advisor or a female financial advisor. It's more about the experience and the understanding that, you know, for many women, our lives are very busy and very different, and we do need the information packaged in a way that's very accessible for us.
Thank you. So good question from Erin, asking about saying many younger wahine are very keen to get involved in an investment but don't know where to start. So do you think we should be teaching investment basics at school, or how do you feel about an induction sort of process, especially for young women?
Yeah, as I mentioned, with the Gender Justice Collective, we've just literally closed off our survey, and 72% of respondents said that education in schools around finance and money was what they desperately wanted. And also education around budgeting and how money works was 77%. So to me, it's a kind of a no-brainer. It's kind of like, how do we make sure that not only women, but also, you know, the whole of our younger generation understand this? And I think, you know, organisations like Sharesies, who've made it very accessible, a really great step in that direction.
Martin, what do you...
Yeah, look, I agree. I think it's really is important for it to be introduced in the schools. And actually, I remember about 20 odd years ago, and I think it might have been the Life Education Trust for looking at introducing it. I can't remember if it was primary or secondary schools, but it, you know, again, it gets back to the time. Well, what do we drop off the curriculum? But I think New Zealanders have realised now that it actually is significantly important, and particularly, you know, addressing issues of inequalities. You know, and there's also the socioeconomic inequalities, and I think education is a powerful tool to actually narrow that gap. And it does concern me that gap's getting wider and wider, And unless we address something, start to address it soon through education, we could be setting ourselves up for some big problems further on down the track.
And actually, sorry, just to jump in there, when I hear you speaking, Mark, and it reminds me of that proverb, which I'm going to muck up, but it's around, like if you teach a woman to fish, she's able to feed her whole family and her village. Yeah. So, and I completely and utterly understand that schools are overloaded anyhow. So whilst it would be great to have this in schools, I do think there's a real opportunity to really engage with women to really boost their financial wellness and their financial literacy, so that they can also, have that in their kid day to be able to kind of teach the next generation as well. So I think there's something in there. So
I think too, if we think creatively about the way we teach, a range of subjects, you could actually introduce basic financial literacy, budgeting, all that in those topics. Ranging from the social sciences through to obviously the maths and that, but there's a whole, it touches a whole lot of other subjects that our children are learning at school. So a bit more creativity there, and I think we would do a lot. And actually, I think too, you're right there. If we did target the young woman, you've probably got a more receptive audience and actually a more impactful audience, as you say, because quite often the role of teaching and all of that stability around in the home often falls on the woman, and they play such a significant role in that.
Yeah, and as you said, Angela, with your example of Super, there are ways of making it really fun and enjoyable. It doesn't need to be, white man's yeah, exactly.
Yeah, superannuation, gosh.
Yeah.
You start using those words.
And often, often superannuation, the way that it's kind of marketed or communicated, it's like older people walking on a beach holding hands. And it's like, it's too late then, team. You need to be thinking about it when you're 20. And if we can make that as exciting and interesting as possible, then we have this opportunity to really change the financial futures of not only women, but across the board,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whole families and
whole
families.
Yeah.
So Evie makes an interesting comment here. 70% of Afterpay or lay-by customers are young women, which is just such an obvious example of where financial literacy is needed so much that we're great at shopping, but are we really great at really being mindful and thinking about what's what money we have and where it's going. So actually on mindful investing, are you conscious of any of the fund managers that are explicitly promoting their credentials in this area and really in New Zealand really starting to step out and actually make a feature of either their diversity within their teams or the focus of their investment philosophies?
No, not specifically in New Zealand. We have had one or two, and there's a couple in the industry, quite high profile and they've been very successful. But I'm not aware that they've marketed themselves particularly as a woman-led investment firm for women. Certainly globally there are. I was just reading of a relatively small fund in, I think it was Boston Common, and they've gathered about nearly $3 billion US, and they're very much managed. All the roles are key for women, very much on gender equality as they look through their investment lens and marketed to women.
Yeah, and there's also a fund in Australia called Verve, who are a superannuation fund for women by women. I'm not entirely sure in terms of how far down that gender lens goes in terms of the supply chain, etc. But again, to me, it's just like a huge opportunity waiting for someone. Yeah, but no, I personally, and I mean, I'm across this and I'm interested, but I haven't actually seen anyone who has put that lens across their investments or their managed funds or anything like that.
So Martin, question, what is the woman-led Boston fund that you referred to? What's the name of it?
I think it's called Boston Commons. I'll just give us a couple of minutes and I'll see if I can track it down.
Thank you for that. It's just, I'm sure people are on the call are really interested in following up some of these references. So thank you.
Yeah, Boston Common. And also there's a woman of colour as well. So, it's quite an interesting read. I think it was a profile on the Financial Times in the last couple of months that I was reading, and great background. And actually one of the things they did do is it's kind of interesting how these things progress, but there's I don't know whether it was a baseball team or something, but they were called the Redskins, and they were very active in actually getting that name changed. And they're a relatively small investor, but in that the organisation that owned that sports team, but they were actually managed to persuade, very emphatically through use of proxies and having conversations. So Boston Common is the name.
Thank you, and good to have these references and the mention of Sharesies, which is obviously one of the more interesting entrants to the market in recent years. Women entrepreneurs driving that business, and great to see some creativity in the financial markets. As you say, Angela, it's a huge opportunity across the board, and there's so much that can be done. So we're drawing to a close. So do you have any final statements before we close up? So perhaps Martin first.
Look, just thank you, and appreciate that these sort of forums, it's what we do from when we walk out of here, and every little thing that we can do can make a change. So I put the challenge out there, you pick up on some ideas and make a difference in your home and your workplace, or the way you invest, and love to get any feedback as well as to how we can do better. So kia ora, thank you.
Thank you. Angela?
I distinctly remember when we ran our Money, Money, Money seminar, Diana Crossan talked about, she got up and talked about retirement savings, and she had this great thing that she said to all the women there, she said, don't take the burnt chop. So it was kind of like, make sure that you kind of put on your life mask and understand how you need to really take control of your finances, and understand where you need to upskill yourself in terms of financial literacy. And I've really taken that on board myself. My own personal journey toward understanding my finances has been really interesting, and it's so liberating and empowering to really kind of get away from this whole idea that it's completely difficult to understand. It's not. It's way simpler than we all think.
Fantastic. Is there a way that we can have a look at the survey that you've done? Is it going to be published, or are you able to send us references? Or
we will be publishing it over the next few weeks. As I said, it's literally just closed on Friday, and we're just crunching the data now. But you can follow us on Gender Justice Collective on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll be sharing a lot of stuff there too. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we will make sure that reference is posted onto the Mindful Money website, and so people can follow up gender justice. So thank you for that. Look, it's been a fantastic discussion. There's so many ideas, and it's such a really powerful topic. I think you've both convinced us that there's a huge opportunity, some good progress, maybe some green shoots of progress, we could say, but a long way to go. Love the discussion about teaching our younger people, engaging people in the fun of finance, not the boring side of finance, and in investing, and hopefully we'll find ways to do that more than we have in the past. Thank you both for joining us this evening. It's been great. As the people on the call know, that we've had some fantastic discussions in our seminar series so far, and you can see all of the YouTube videos and summaries on the Mindful Money events page, which is www.mindfulmoney.nz, and it's also the reference is also in the chat if you would like to access that. I'm really pleased to let you all know that Mindful Money has reached its crowdfunding target, which was $30,000. It's blown through that amount this evening, I believe 34,000. So it is just terrifically exciting for everybody who's involved and who cares about mindful investing and bringing the power of money into people's lives and making them realize what they can do with their investment dollars. And I'd like to just ask Barry, just if you'd like to say something on in terms of the excitement about reaching the crowdfunding target.
Kia ora. Thank you, Bridget, and thanks to you both, Martin and Angela, for a really interesting discussion. I thought that was great, really good. So thanks very much. The people have asked me about the crowdfunding target, and the thing I said was what was exciting is not only the quantity of money but the quality of it. So so many great people have supported us, and hopefully we can use this to build relationships. And I see a number of people on the Zoom call tonight who have supported us. Many others across the country. We're really grateful, and it will kick us off to be able to take these messages out to a much broader public. And as Angela said, we can make it fun, exciting, and we can orient the messages to people who can benefit from the information, and particularly in a nuanced way to women. And I thought that the information from tonight will be really helpful in doing that, because after all, it's our money, and we should be in charge of our money, and we should be able to control it, and we should be able to say on what terms do we invest. And that's really the ethos behind Mindful Money. It's a process of empowering people to find out what's in their portfolio and to take charge of their investing and to invest for good. So once again, thank you all very much for a great seminar. Thank you, Bridget, for facilitating. Ka kite anō.
Kia ora, thank you.
Kia ora. And just before we sign off, okay.
Carry on. Yep.
Still on?
Yep.
Just before we sign off, next week, ethical investment from a Maori perspective. So very much look forward to seeing you on the call then, which will be very interesting. A huge thanks to Harbour Asset Management, to Booster, and to Generate, who have sponsored this series, and really grateful to them. Continued support. Mindful Money, as you know, is a charity, and so we can really benefit from people amplifying our message, and in particular supporting us the way these organisations have done, and the way many of you have done, which is terrific. So thank you very much to our two speakers again. Ka kite anō.